Well, here in 2024, National Novel Writing Month has had some controversy about AI. But as I was digging back in their blog, in 2018, they compiled some statistics about those who finished, those who wrote 50,000 words in the month of November. And I think we can learn something from that. Hello, I'm Denis'Thomas. I'm the author of 10 books, and I didn't write any of them during NaNoWriMo. Will all opinions, controversy, and maybe even scandals set aside, National Novel Writing Month is one of the biggest events of the year for writers. People all over the world participate in this challenge to write a novel, to write 50,000 words in 30 days, and specifically the 30 days of November. It's possible, but it is a challenge. It means writing an average of 1,667 words a day if you don't miss a day. Only 10 to 15% of people actually complete the challenge. And honestly, I think that's an aside. The point of the challenge is to get people writing. And even though I don't participate in NaNoWriMo, I'm a big fan of anything that gets people writing. So even though only a few actually complete the challenge, I think we can learn a lot from those who do. How does one manage to write 50,000 words in only 1 month? Well, back in 2018, with the help of the app Rescue Time, they compiled some statistics about those who did it. Here's what they found. First, winners wrote an average of 1 hour and 19 minutes a day. Now, that's an average. They wrote more some days, less some days, but on average, they wrote an hour and 19 minutes a day. I think the lesson for us is that winners show up and do their writing time. The second thing that they found is that winners missed less than 3 days per month. So not only would they show up and do their writing time, but they showed up just about every day. Of course, you know I'm a fan of that. I think that consistency of having a daily habit of showing up and doing your writing is a great way to get a book done. So every day they showed up to write, missing less than 3 in an entire month. Well, the third thing they found about those who were able to complete the challenge of writing a novel in November was that they wrote nearly twice as much on the weekends as those who didn't complete the challenge. Now, I think the lesson here is that they worked smarter. Now, presumably, at least a chunk of these completers had day jobs. And so maybe during the week they weren't able to write as much. But knowing that in advance, they scheduled and they planned to write more on the weekends, kind of more of a writing burst than just the consistent daily writing. I actually am a fan of this strategy as well. I think sometimes it shakes up our writing a little bit, it makes it a little more fun. It's nice to be able to dedicate a little bit of extra time to it. Often, especially for those of us that are busy and writing in the margins of our lives, we can't write huge chunks on a very consistent basis. But we can possibly write more on some days of the week or some days of the month. Or we could have a special event where we take an afternoon and we go somewhere and we write more. I think it's a great strategy for increasing your word count. Kind of along with that, the fourth thing that they found was that 100% of those who completed the challenge had at least one day where they wrote for more than 3 hours. In other words, they were banking words, that they weren't necessarily writing 1,667 words on each day of the 30-day month, that they had some days where they wrote a lot. They occasionally missed a day, rarely, and they probably wrote less than that on a consistent basis. But because they did that weekend writing and they had at least one day where they wrote a lot, they were able to complete the challenge. I think that also was maybe a mark of their dedication to completing the challenge. And we can learn something from that as well. Are you dedicated enough to writing your book that you will carve out the time that you need? Maybe it doesn't need to be more than 3 hours at least once a month, but are you willing to carve out the time it takes on a consistent basis? All right, the fifth thing they found I actually find really reassuring. Here in the United States, we celebrate Thanksgiving on the fourth Thursday of the month, which means that there is a major holiday that happens during the month of NaNoWriMo. Now, depending on who you are and where you are in your stage of life, this may be a bigger deal or a less big deal. I mean, for me, it is my favorite holiday of the year. I absolutely love Thanksgiving. I dedicate the week to cooking and I just totally love it. It's so much fun for me. But what they found was that writing time across the board dropped about 20% during the month of Thanksgiving. Whether you are the one cooking the meal and doing a lot of the preparation or hosting, or you're someone who is just going to someone's house and maybe you help out on the day, either way, a major holiday affects writing. I think there's a lesson in that for us as well, is that we can anticipate that on holidays or on busy weeks or maybe times when we are traveling, that our writing time is going to drop. I mean, what they found was a 20% drop. It's a pretty significant drop in writing, but it doesn't mean that you won't complete your book. I think if we look at these things and how they go together, maybe in anticipation of a drop during the week of Thanksgiving, those that were successful were able to work a little more on the weekends and plan at least one day where they wrote for more than 3 hours to help make up for the time that they weren't writing during the holiday week. You know, we are entering holiday season. And so I would ask you as a writer, what things can you anticipate in your schedule? And maybe if you want to, there might be a reason to have a bigger writing day or to bank some words to help you prepare for that. And the last thing that they found, I also found really interesting because it is the opposite of how I write, but it makes sense. They found that consistently, those who were able to complete a novel in the month of November wrote in the evening, that they consistently wrote between the hours of 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. Now, again, presumably a lot of these people have day jobs, and maybe getting up early and then working made it extra hard in the mornings. If you have kids to get off to school, morning writing can be really difficult, so that makes a lot of sense. But I think it's really intriguing how many of the completers chose to be evening writers. And specifically, that 9 to 11 is often after young children are in bed. So I think the lesson for us is to look at your schedule and consider, maybe you hear me say I'm a morning writer and you think, oh, I should be a morning writer too. Well, maybe if that works where you are in your season of life, that hasn't always worked for me in every season of life. Maybe you're in a season of life where you need to be writing in the evenings after the kids have gone to bed, or in the evenings after you've worked and relaxed a little bit. What time of day would work best for you? So I don't know, maybe you found those 6 things interesting as well. I love to look at what works for other people and then to adapt it and to modify it for what works for me today, where I am at this stage of life. Those things are always changing, and I love to get ideas from other people. And we're a community of writers. Let's celebrate those who succeed. The goal is to write a book, however you write a book. I recommend with the right method that you write 500 words a day for 100 days, and then you end up with that 50,000 word manuscript. Instead of condensing it into 1 month, I suggest a lower word count and doing it for 3.5 months. I think that that is a sustainable way to write, and it's a way to continue writing even after you finish your book so that you could write another book. or continue writing in other ways. However, I recognize that the point of NaNoWriMo is not sustainability. It is not to spend 12 months writing 12 books. The idea is that once a year, you come with this intense writing burst and you get it done. And then you'll have to come back later. I guess you could spend the rest of the year editing your book. I've got more to say about editing in a later video. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you do that so you don't miss my tips on how to edit your manuscript once you finish it. Well, this isn't how I write. It isn't how I recommend writing, but I think that NaNoWriMo is a fun challenge. And maybe it's one that you're engaging in this year. If you are, let me know. I'm curious to hear about how you approach writing. But I think these statistics do teach us something about how to set up a writing schedule so that you both write consistently and take advantage of writing burst. Both strategies can be really helpful in finishing your novel, whether you do it in 30 days or 100 days. I suspect that really successful writers use both strategies. So tell me, which one of these 6 strategies was your favorite? Are there any of these that you do use? Are there some that you would like to try? Or maybe you're foregoing NaNoWriMo completely. If so, you might want to learn more about the right method, and you can do that over here in this video. Watch it next.